where we live. So it finds us in our homes. So your question was, what is radon gas? So it's like any other gas, as we know, but this one specifically comes from underground, from the transformation of uranium and thorium. And unfortunately, it is colorless, odorless, tasteless, and we can't see it.
That's very important. And let me ask, like a layman, when we talk about many of these things in the ground, the mineral resources, the uranium and stuff like that, we for example, the discussion on oil, we find oil wells in particular places. And we know that we have kingfisher here, we have that there, we have that there. We plot them and know that we do not have oil everywhere. We have oil in specific places. Talk about radon itself. Is radon everywhere, or radon is in specific areas? Like we can say radon is too much in Karamoja, it's too much in Toro, it's too much in... is it everywhere?
Thank you so much. Radon gas is everywhere. The only difference is that the concentration of the gas varies from location to location, depending on what causes it. Like I explained, it comes from uranium and thorium. Okay, so if you find in a place, for example, Karamoja, there is too much uranium, then it means you will find higher concentrations of radon gas there, or the same as thorium. But what I can assure you that everywhere, when you get soil and test it, you will find uranium, you will find thorium, but in varying concentrations. So radon gas is everywhere, but in various concentrations.
Okay, very important. Now, let me also just get this clearly. Is there a way that we abuse in nature to actually now get the effects of radon gas? For example, when we deforestate, when we abuse the environment, when we litter in water, or you know, when we do lots of things, when we graze in water, defecate in water, do all the things, then we cause havoc to the environment. Is there a way in which we abuse nature to actually have the effects of radon gas itself?
Thank you so much. So I told you that this radon gas comes from underground into our homes and everywhere anyway. So what happened is that, because I said it seeps through the ground, it means when you excavate, you have created you know, an empty space for it. It easily goes through. So during the human practices or human activities, yes, they can now lead to the concentration of radon being high in some locations, especially to do with mining. Mining is one of the activities. In case in that area there is too much uranium or thorium, then it means too much radon will be coming out. However, what we note is that coming out is fine. The only gas which is radon gas, the only place where we find it very, very risky, it is indoor. Okay? Indoor in our homes, because when it escapes into the outside surrounding, it quickly dilutes with the other air and it's harmless. But the one which escapes into our rooms inside the house is the one which is risky. How does that get into rooms? Because, for example, this is now cemented everywhere. How homes are now tiled. You know, the floors are not just mere ndugu ateny coming here. Because indoors, we've advanced that we cement our floors, we tile them, we do all the things to them. How does it come through?
Yeah, thank you very much. Like Mr. Nadarius has mentioned, that this radon emanates from the ground. And as you can see, most of the construction materials we use from the ground. We get sand, for example, from Luera and make tiles, and we lay bricks from different material. So you find that depending on the level, like you mentioned, that the level of uranium and radon varies from place to place. So if by any chance you got that material where the concentration of uranium or radon, of uranium is high, and you make a construction material, it means that radon will emanate from the walls or from the floors. But also, if it was your house and you're having a basement, for example, when you are constructing these houses and tiling, there are those spaces we live in, and at the edges, for it looks for any small opening, and then you find it emanating into our buildings. Okay. Yes.
What then are the health hazards of radon itself?
Like he mentioned in the introduction that radon is a gas, and itself is radioactive. That means it is unstable. It has some excess energy that it has to give out in the process of transformation. So being a gas, it means that you can easily take it by inhalation. Yeah. So when you breathe it, it takes 3.8 hours. Days before it transforms. So if it
3.8 hours,
3.8 days, yeah, before it transforms. So if it in the process it is still in your internal system, particularly the lungs, because you are inhaling it, it will transform into those particles which we said are having higher energy, or the ionizing radiation. And those particles, they deposit all their energy onto the lungs. So in the cells, that could be fine, or changing their normal functionality in a way that they can become abnormal, and by the end of the day, you'll see that you are developing some kind of tumor inside the lung that will tell you you're having some lung cancers. So radon being a gas, externally, it doesn't have significant problem to public health. But if it goes inside your body, then that's when the damage is caused. So it is a very biggest risk in smokers, but also worldwide. It is one of the leading causes of lung cancer in non-smokers. Yeah, so it doesn't only go to smokers, but also the non-smokers are affected.
You want to say something on that?
Yeah, I actually just supplement what he said. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. The first one is smoking. But that is not to say that there are no other causes of lung cancer, okay? There are other causes, like many causes of cancers, as you know. But number one that causes lung cancer is smoking. The reason being, in tobacco, there is an element we call polonium. Polonium-210. It's in the tobacco. You see, when people are just smoking, and you say that it's okay, but they are killing themselves. So in the tobacco, that smoke, there is polonium-210, which behaves the same way like radon gas. So because, like he said, we inhale it, so the greatest effect goes to the lungs, and therefore you find yourself getting lung cancer. So like he rightly put it, it is the radon gas is the second leading cause of lung cancer. Now, in Uganda, what is Uganda's case now?
Exactly, because I wanted to know the prevalence in Uganda. And maybe before we get to Uganda itself, I'm thinking, how does somebody tell, first of all, radon is actually causing them effect or harm? Are there any symptoms? Are there any, how does somebody tell? For example, we've now been educated about COVID, and we've learned about COVID. When you feel the shortness of breath, you're feeling this, you're feeling this, you're feeling that, then you suspect that I might have contracted the COVID-19. How about when that comes in? Because you highlighted a very important thing, by the way, that it's one of the causes of cancer, one of the leading causes of cancer, lung cancer in non-smokers. Now, how does somebody get to that, for example? Are there any effects that, and maybe say, with this or that, or it is something that you just have to leave to the medics in hospital to actually tell you you've developed cancer in the lungs and yet you're not a smoker?
Yeah, you see, with the lung cancer, for example, it's a solid tumor, solid cancer, and when you're exposed to radon today, it does not mean that the effect will manifest tomorrow. Yeah, you get it. So there is a latency period between the date when you are exposed to the gas itself and the associated particles to when the cancer will develop. So for most of the solid cancers, the latency period is from 15 to 30 years. So you might stay with it, growing it, and you don't feel the signs, like any other cancer. When it is growing for the first, in the initial stages, it is very hard for you to know that to tell that, yes, until when it progresses, and then maybe you can start feeling chest pains, or difficulties when you are breathing, And then, but still, you need to do when you get those signs, you have to go for screening. If you are a smoker, of course, a smoker, like you mentioned, in smokers, it is the leading cause, or the second leading cause in smokers. So still, you have to go for screening. They take some chest X-rays, and then other diagnostic methods to see that you are not. The biggest challenge is that this radon, you can't see it, so it's very difficult for you to, even when you have some pains, to relate, to say that you are getting this because of the exposure. So that's why later, as we shall say, is that we want to carry out indoor radon testing to see the prevalence of radon in indoors. Okay. Yes.
Very important. Now, let me come to Mr. Nimbashabira. Let's talk about Uganda's prevalence, because I think you must have looked at it as a very bad problem that causes you to actually come out on TV to talk about the thing. I'm only thinking so because if it wasn't that bad, maybe you wouldn't be here discussing it. What's the prevalence?
Now, by last year, that is by December 2020, yes. Now, Uganda Cancer Institute reported 501 new cases of lung cancer, and out of the 501, 466 persons, unfortunately, died of lung cancer. And when you look at the statistics,
466 of the 501.
501.
So 501 were the new
cases.
Of course, there were some others which were existing.
Yes.
So those were the new cases.
Oh, the new cases.
New cases, yes, the new cases. So now, by December last year, it was the 11th contributor of cancer deaths in the country. So you really see that you cannot take it for granted. Much as people might, it's something they might not have heard of. That's why we are coming out. Because for us, as our mandate, we know that even the smallest dose can cause something. So when we looked at those statistics, then it is something we need to worry about, because we are not sure those 466 persons who died, whether it was due to radon or other related things. So that's why he mentioned that we might need to carry out to see what is the effect, what is the risk. That's why we have started doing something, as later on we can share with you. So that is the case here in Uganda. But when you read statistics of other countries, it is quite interesting. Really, they have a serious problem. Like in the United States, radon gas is really rampant. If you go to Netherlands, Finland, Sweden, there is too much radon gas in those places. They are really suffering with the problem, but they have learned how to live with it and contain it.
Okay.
Yes.
From the discussion that we talked about here of radon gas exposure, it just seems to me that this thing is actually with us in space, in air, in indoors, outdoors, and I think we do not know how to avoid it. Is there any other way, apart from it just being inhaled from the atmosphere? Is there any other cause of it? Is there any other way that we can still get into that exposure if it's not just inhaled?
Yes. We can get exposed to radon in different ways, not only inhalation, but also because given that radon itself is radioactive and has to go under, it's a gas, but the daughter particles that it emits after it transforms solid particles. So those solid particles can cause some contamination, maybe on the foods, and then you find yourself ingesting it, and also by drinking, because most of our water comes from underground, and like you mentioned, we have uranium, which is a natural element, and also radium, which can dilute in water. I mean, which can get mixed in water, and then it moves. So in the process, when you drink the water from down, and maybe also these ones we use in the bathrooms, so still we can get contaminated through drinking water. So the exposure to radon may not necessarily be by inhalation, but also by ingestion through drinking water and
what about if somebody boils the water? Don't you kill it by boiling the water, especially drinking water?
So there is a possibility, because like you know, radioactive material is not affected by these physical conditions of temperature, I don't know, humidity. So the boiling does not affect it, but there's a possibility that its 3.8 days have already reached, and then it evaporates in gaseous form, and then it diffuses into the surrounding, and then still you can inhale it. Yes.
Ndugu Nazarius, what other diseases that come from this problem of radon gas, apart from the lung cancer? Because yes, that's one of those, but if by the grace of God you're saved from that, can it find you somewhere? Can it find you in another angle?
I think I want to build from where he stopped, because he said we can get exposed to radon through inhalation and ingestion. And actually also, since it is a gas, because imagine if you enter a room where there is a gas, so your whole body really is exposed
to it. Yes.
So, however, there have been no observable effect from the other two he has talked about, from this external exposure. My whole body has been exposed, because when you enter it, all your body organs are exposed, and also from drinking. The only cancer, observable cancer, which has been, which is known, is lung cancer. Yes, there have been other studies which have been carried out to see the effect of radon gas through ingestion and so on, but especially with leukemia in children, lung cancer of the blood. Now, these studies, yes, they have they show that there is some association between radon exposure and leukemia. However, like I mentioned before, ionizing radiation sources are not the only causes of cancer. So therefore, there is no conclusive, there is no conclusive evidence that even when I have drunk water that is contaminated with radon gas, I will get stomach cancer. So what they have done, they call them ecological studies. Ecological studies have been done. I'm not so sure of those which have been carried out in Uganda, but by observing people, the way they live, and the health effects later. They have seen some association, but there is no evidence to support that, because like I mentioned, cancer is brought about by many things. What we are only sure of is that radon gas causes lung cancer, and it is not the only one, but number 2. Yes.
Okay. I think we are dealing with a very bad problem again. We have a problem which I do not know how to address. What needs to be done in that regard? Because from what you're submitting, is we are too exposed. They could be radon already here. Definitely. With us. They're supposed to be radon here. And I'm actually now thinking, I'm just seated in radon. But then what we need to do, how do we need to save or protect ourselves?
Yeah, so protection from radon is case by case. So it depends, because like you mentioned, we are having some people who are involved in a number of mining activities, underground mining. We are also having radon indoors. Like you are saying, rightly said, that there is radon everywhere, even here.
Even here,
last month I was surprised when I measured in my own home, and the levels of radon were slightly higher than in some mining places.
In your home?
In my own home. The radon levels were slightly high, though below the limit for dwellings. So if you are in the mining area, especially underground mining, what we need to do is there must be some good ventilation. And when we come, like he mentioned, like we shall discuss later, that we are trying to carry out measurements to see the radon prevalence in these areas. So if we find it is higher, then it means that the time that individuals spend in these areas, in the mining area, should be limited. And then ventilation, and of course they need to have masks to so that there is free circulation of air, the bad air does not reach. But now when we are in the indoors, like the house, like this, So it means that still we need to make sure that there is good ventilation. There is good circulation of air, fresh air coming in, and to diffuse with the air inside if it was having a radon, so that it does not affect so much. But the other thing later, which we shall look at, is trying to make sure that we understand where these materials we are using come from. That means that if, I remember there is recently when they were talking about that suppliers of sand should be licensed. So that means if you are licensed, you need to bring samples for testing to know the amount of these natural elements in the sand, so that we know that the materials that we are going to use for construction meet the standards in the radiation protection point of view. So largely it is about ventilation, adequate ventilation, and good construction techniques.
You've also, well, I hear, it's also, there's a lot of radon in adjacent buildings. There's a lot of concentration on that. How about that? Buildings that are adjacent?
Well, like I mentioned, or like we said before, radon gas comes from, we said, down, okay? It also can come from drinking water, and also it can come from construction materials. So, and remember, most of these construction materials, if not all, they are mined from the soil. So, if in this building, the construction material they used were from those locations where they are high concentration of, for example, uranium or thorium, and I come and use them for construction now, my building will have higher concentration than for the other neighbor, okay? For the other neighbor who used construction materials which did not have the other elements in high concentration. So that's the challenge with radon. It varies from building to building, room to room, because of its nature, like the way it enters the house and the way it escapes. But let's agree that what is known is that radon gas tends to concentrate where there is poor ventilation. Okay, that's why I mentioned.
So ventilation is very important. That it helps us reduce the risks.
Yeah.
Yes, so long as there is that free exchange between indoor and outdoor air, then it is somehow diluted. But like I said, it will depend on the source, because you see, if it is coming from down, then it means just opening our windows may not help, because it will continuously come. The way ventilation is excellent is if the radon that the radon is coming from the construction materials. That is why when you find a storage building, for example, when you measure radon concentrations on the lower floor, for example, underground, you find it is higher than for the upper ones, because it is coming from the ground. Okay. Whereas if you go on the second, third, fourth, it has already been diluted. Yeah, it has already been diluted. So therefore, it is important that at a minimum we have proper ventilation in places where we work, where we live.
How do you measure it?
We have special instruments. Like we said, we can't detect it with our senses. We have special instruments. But what is peculiar about its measurement is that it is something you are not going to measure in 1 minute or 2 minutes. For you to have conclusive results, you need to measure same location for 3 months, okay? Because the concentration of radon is affected by many factors, okay? So we use special instruments to get instantaneous readings. Now those ones, they give us a clear understanding that, okay, here there could be something. Here there is raw, here is just instantaneous. So we use special instruments, call them radon detectors in various forms. Some give instant readings, others you have to take the rub to read. But there are special instruments that we use to measure radon gas.
Okay, yes?
And maybe to add on what he's saying, you have to measure it for 3 months, but also you need to measure it across seasons. because you need to know how does radon gas behave during the dry seasons, and then during the rainy season, so that you advise the responsible individuals to take action whenever that season arises.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's very important, ladies and gentlemen. And for you who are actually viewing our program now, we talk about, of course, the Atomic Energy Council now helping us decipher and understand this exposure of a very rare gas, radon gas, which is actually with us everywhere, and we had not put concentration to it. We'll take a break, very short break, and return. When we return, we'll still continue with the discussion here on the radon gas exposure with experts from the Atomic Energy Council. Let's come back.
No one should stop you from finishing what's yours. That's why MTN gives you data bundles that don't expire. Load MTN Freedom bundles using My MTN app and enjoy the freedom to finish your data bundles.
MTN.
Today tastes like a new tradition, like an old favorite. Tastes like all hands on deck and all eyes on the prize. Today tastes like a piece of the action. And it never tasted this good.
Sector got disconnected, but this year we reconnect to leads, growth, to industry experts, to wider markets, to untapped potential. Be part of the first ever virtual Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo and engage with industry experts from around the world. Find out how you can grow your leads, put your tourism business back on the map, and a whole lot more. Sign up for free at www.poate.co.ug/register and reconnect with your world. The Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo runs from the 27th to the 29th of April 2021 and is proudly brought to you by Uganda Tourism Board.
Experience 100% 4G speeds across Uganda with the Airtel 4G Pocket Wi-Fi available at 123,000 shillings only. It comes with a backup battery and 15 GB free for 1 month. Visit the nearest Airtel shop, device selling shop, or Airtel online shop. www.airtel.co.ug/broadband-discover. Airtel, the smartphone network.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we learn, because it's those things that bring us close together.
by the Atomic Energy Act, number 24 of 2008 laws of Uganda, to regulate peaceful applications of ionizing radiation in order to provide for the protection and safety of individuals, society and the environment from the dangers resulting from ionizing radiation. Join us as we discuss the impact of radon gas exposure to people and environment. This will be on the 24th of April 2021 from 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. exclusive on UBC TV. You can also join the conversation on UBC TV and on all our social media platforms.
My name is Jagana Samakola Ziksoka, continuing with the discussion of the radon gas exposure here by the Atomic Energy Council, and of course with the experts here from the council itself. Ndugu Ateny with us, and of course Ndugu Nimbashavira also with me. I'll start with you, Ndugu Ateny. You talked about yourself measuring the radon gas levels in your house, and it scared you. What are the limits, especially in residentials or in places where we are?
Thank you very much. There is in one submission that my colleague mentioned that there is no radiation that is safe. Okay. So by establishing these limits, we are trying to devise means of how to make sure that we get the bare minimum. So we have people who are exposed by the virtue of the work, like the people in the mining industry, and then also in our homes, because we spend most of the time in our homes. So we measure this gas in a unit that we call a becquerel per becquerel. So becquerel is one radon atom which is disintegrating or decaying in 1 second. But then we are looking at a cubic meter. So we are looking, the unit is becquerel per meter cubed. So in our homes, the limit of this gas that we are measuring should not exceed 300. Of course, the one I measured, the highest was 220, which was slightly close. And then in the mining industry, for workers, the limit is slightly higher because we look at the benefit that individuals derive out of the exposure. So in the mining industry, these workers are working. The protective equipment, protective measures must be put in place, like ventilation and then breathing masks and the like. But their dosage is slightly higher because we are looking at the socio-economic impact of the activity vis-a-vis the detriment. So their limit is 1,000. It should not exceed 1,000 becquerel per meter cubed. Yes.
What was it in your home when you measured?
It was 220 becquerel per meter.
220? Oh, 220.
Yes.
Yes, but of course you can't say that may be good enough.
No, it's not good enough.
Ndugu Nimbashavira, let's talk about what the Atomic Energy Council is actually doing to address the problem to the population of Uganda.
Well, before I address that, I wanted to supplement on what he talked about the limits. You see, he measured, he said 220. 220. So what I want the viewers and the public to know is that we said radon gas behaves in a weird way. So at one point in your house it is high, on another time it is low, because they said it depends on a number of factors. For example, here, because it is not easily dissolved in water, so when it rains, it means, because it comes from the ground, so water seals the pores. So you find, for example, maybe in the wet season, when you measure it is low. It reduces. It reduces. While when the pores are open, it is high. So by me measuring, for example,
200, it's not standard that it's going to be 400 every day throughout the year.
Exactly. That's why we want to measure it across seasons, like he said. Then we see the average. We see the average. But I talked about the instantaneous reading, the instantaneous. So of course, when you get 200, you say, that means maybe tomorrow it can be high or it can be low. So, but it gives you an indication. It is different from when you measure and you find the 5 compared to 300. So what are we doing?
As a council? As
a council. What we are doing, and I want you to imagine the magnitude of work which we have to do to safeguard the country, because the biggest risk now is in the homes where we live and at the workplaces, for example, like here. So you imagine if we are to do all the measurements in all homesteads and the workplaces, So we have a radon survey strategy, which we have developed
as the council.
As the council. So this one, we have tried to look at what can be the contributing factors, okay? Where is the highest population? Where do we have high traces of thorium and uranium deposits, okay? Where do we have many people staying? For example, what we have done as to start us off, like I mentioned that this radon gas the concentration is high in enclosed places, those ones which have poor ventilation. We have started with tourist caves, okay? Because imagine you go underground, the ventilation may not be so proper. So we have started with that to start us off, okay? But then later on we shall roll out a program. Of course we cannot do this alone. We have to have very many stakeholders because like we said, we need building engineers, okay? And very many stakeholders. So what we have done, we have bought some equipment that can be able to detect this radiation. We have trained some people on how to carry out radon surveys, okay? We have also created awareness to some stakeholders actually, like there we have very many stakeholders. For example, here in the city, we have Kampala Capital City because they are the people who approve these building plans and so on. KCCA. Then we talked about radon in water. We have National Water and Sewerage Corporation. So we are creating awareness so that they first appreciate the magnitude of the problem and then we work together. But of course, the priority is to be given to those confined places. For example, our next phase, we are going to be carrying out radiation surveys in this building, especially within the city, where there is high occupancy. Okay, you can talk of these shopping malls and
arcades
so on,
and several others.
And so on. So ministry buildings, okay, other buildings where we have many people because they come to work. Okay, these are the workers we talked about. So we have that radon strategy, which we shall implement in phases to safeguard the population.
This, of course, cannot come without challenges, Ndugu Ateny. The challenges, because I know, yes, these are very good strategies, these are very good plans that the council has, but of course they can't come without challenges. What are some of the challenges that you're facing as a council? Well, apart from finances, because I'm pretty sure you don't have enough money. I'm just certain about that. There is not enough money for you, maybe.
Yeah, that is for sure. Like he has mentioned, that the spectrum is very big. If we start rolling out the measurements, so it means that one of the biggest challenge we have had is limitation in equipment. We cannot deploy the equipment even in the central business itself. So the equipment is still not adequate, and human resource is still not yet enough. So we are trying to work within ourselves to see that we can set off. But
on equipment, maybe I think there can be a way of procuring equipment from wherever the equipment comes from. But how about human resource itself? Are we talking about people who studied atomic energy, or anybody who can recruit from anywhere and actually maybe just run them through and know how to do these things?
No, we believe that there could be a number of people, because radon science is not something very abstract. It's something they teach in the physics in the different departments of the universities. It's true the universities could also do research, but also what we are looking at in terms of limitation of human resource is the available staff at the institution, at the Atomic Energy Council, is quite inadequate. And of course, you need to have people who are specialized in that field.
Exactly, and to me that's my biggest challenge. Yes, yes, you need to find people who actually specialize in those fields.
Yes.
I don't think you can advertise now and say people should come and then I apply. I will not come. I will not come because I don't know what.
And then lastly but not least is you see, we have been doing these measurements, like you have mentioned, in the caves, and you find that some of the caves are in the jurisdiction of another institution, like, for example, in the forest, and it is under National Forest Authority or Wildlife Authority. So at the beginning, we found some challenge in a way that I think there was some miscommunication, but of recent, we have resolved to engage and work together with the different agencies who are responsible for these sites.
Then what are the future plans of the Atomic Council now in as far as radon contra exposure is concerned?
Largely it is on the strengthening of the infrastructure, of the regulatory infrastructure. And of course the law is in place. The law applies to radiation of natural origin, but then the regulatory framework is not yet very clear. We are developing the norm regulations, which is yet to be gazetted. It is at the level of legal drafting by the first Parliamentary Council. So after that, it will give us the requirements based on the findings we have got from the preliminary studies that we have carried out to move forward, and also to enhance capability amongst the officers at Energy Council, training of human resource to be able to undertake this activity. We also intend to continuously engage the different stakeholders, creating awareness amongst the public, because a public which has information, or stakeholders who have information, are more easier to work to deal with than a person who doesn't have information. Actually, it is worse if somebody doesn't have information and gets it from another source, which may not be authentic. So we intend to continuously engage the stakeholders through the different media to see that we can effectively work together, and also to procure more equipment, because we are working, like mentioned, we are doing it on a phased approach. So we find that if we are to do the work effectively and in putting the time factor into consideration, then we need to have equipment that is adequate enough to perform.
Is it very special equipment, or
yes.
it's equipment?
No, it's quite special equipment.
It's quite special.
Yes.
Do we have some in here?
In the country?
Yes.
No.
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 We don't.
We have those ones which are procured, they are in. But I mean, in the market, local markets, we don't have. But like you mentioned, we have acquired some equipment, but it's not enough. Yes.
Is it affordable?
We have it, so it should.
No, but
be
is it affordable? Can somebody buy it in their house?
Yes,
There
there are some cheap and quick radon surveys that, like you mentioned, in Europe and in US. The radon issue is a very big concern, so each and every person is having a personal monitor. So there are those ones in the market which are quite cheaper, that it can give you instant readings, and you can know your status at home, and when the situation is out of hand, you can inform the regulatory body to advise on what you have to do.
Ndugu Nimba Shabira, advise the public, what do they need to do in as far as this exposure is concerned, and how to control it?
You know, for me to be able to adequately advise the public, it would mean that I know their problem. Okay? Now let me assume that there's a problem of radon gas, because...
Let's assume there's a problem.
Yes, let's assume there's a problem of gas. We have already constructed our homes. We cannot bring them down.
We can't break the house.
Cannot break the house. The minimum we can do is to always that we to ensure that we have proper ventilation in our homes and our workplaces. This habit of closing ourselves in the houses during day and night, we need to look into it, because the cheapest method of diluting radon inside your house is to allow...
some of us don't want to open our doors and windows wide open, because, you know, we fear that it will bring in dust, it will bring in mosquitoes. It rather brings in dust, and it dilutes the radon possibly that may be in the house. I'm now just thinking about it.
Yes, because since we don't know, we don't know the extent of radon exposure in our homes, then it is important that we do that first minimum. For now, that's what I can, because we cannot avoid exposure to radon. But in the future, we are, like you said, we are enhancing the infrastructure. We want to test all construction materials.
Okay.
You get it? We want to test construction materials so that we are sure that the levels are within acceptable limits.
Okay.
Yes.
Give a special message to about radon. What you think we can't go without saying that. Then Ndugu Ateny, you'll close by telling us where we can find you and where we can actually reach to you if there's a problem. Yes.
Thank you. As we close this show, as I wind up, what we need to know is that there is no threshold limit of radon. There is no least concentration that can cause that may not cause us problems. So we need to know that however much it is in low concentrations, it can still bring us problems. Actually, what the radon gas, the concentration that causes lung cancer, is not the highest one, because there are people who are exposed to the highest radon concentration. It is the low and moderate, because you are exposed to it over a long period of time. And also we need to note that it is the second leading cause of lung cancer, and it worsens if you are a smoker. Okay.
But because when you're a smoker, you have the first, the first cause. Now you team it to the second one. Yes. Then you have double trouble.
Yes, you have double trouble. And then lastly, like I said, let's try to improve ventilation in our homes and the workplaces.
Very important. Ndugu Atenyi, Yamkama, where do people find you?
Yeah, thank you very much. The viewers, for more information, you can always find us at our offices, which are located in Bukoto, Plot 40, Bukoto Street. So the most of the information, telephone number and others, you can get them on our website, which is www.atomiccouncil.go.ug.
Why would somebody come to your office? I was asking. Why should somebody come to find out about atomic or radon or something? Do people come to your offices to ask for anything?
Yes, of course.
Because you are not a hospital, and I'm thinking, I didn't know anything about radon gas myself, so I'm just finding reason to come to your office.
Yeah, it's a public office. It can be accessed by any person of any kind for any information that you need us to provide or any clarification. So we receive people from different walks of life. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Atenyi Byamukama Abdul. He's a radiation protection officer from the Atomic Energy Council. Thank you so much for having allowed to join us here on ABC TV this afternoon or evening. And thank you so much, Mr. Nimbashavira Nazarias, Senior Radiation Protection Officer at the Atomic Energy Council, and of course thanking the council itself for having allowed to bring this very educative program to us through UBC TV here, and we think and hope that we'll continue with the engagement. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka, thanking you so much, and of course thanking
the Atomic Energy Council
that has enabled and made it possible for us to be here this very evening. We just want to wish you all the best, and of course a good Sunday tomorrow as you go to worship. And of course, to our Muslim brothers also who are in the month of Ramadan, we just want to wish you the best of Ramadan and saying Ramadan Kareem. For God and my country, as we continue inspiring Uganda, stay blessed and good evening.